Good evening, good evening. What's going on, Fair Trade Cafe? Woo! Yeah. Pretty sure we're like against code right now with as many people are in here. So look out for your neighbors. If something happens, save yourselves. No. Awesome. Guys, this is the final Chatterbox show ever. Feels really weird to say. Feels weird to say it just like that. But I said it. I'm really glad that you're all here. I'm really excited about this lineup right now. We have some amazing storytellers, regulars that have been telling for a while at Chatterbox to send us out right. So I'm really excited that you all could be here tonight. This has been a really special community. You'll hear me blubber about it later. But I just want to jump right in and get us to our storytellers. So please put your phones on silent. If you do need some coffee, tip your baristas and don't order a fucking smoothie or I'll find you and I will murder your family. Oh, and for those of you who don't know, my name's Jessie. I'm the host and producer of this show. All right, guys. So the rule is when I bring up storytellers, because there's so many of you, it's going to take a while for them to get up here. So you have to clap the entire time until they get to the microphone. Just so you guys know, that's how this works here. All right, our first storyteller, I've known her since our first location. She is inspiring, and I love her authenticity. Put your hands together for Nicole.
Okay, ready. I had to write it because it was really long. So if I go a little bit over, don't worry, I'm going to get it down. But I want to get my point across. So empowerment really comes down to who you know yourself to be. And that's our theme for tonight. So as a kid, a phrase I remember frequently hearing was, "Who do you think you are?" Rarely I allowed anyone, no matter the circumstance, to dictate to me what power I had in any given situation. For me, acceptance was someone else's opinion as fact, and that never had been okay with me, and that started from a very young age. From what I remember, being small, I would lay in my bed at night listening, and on one particular night, in accordance with my mom's recollection, I was maybe 2 or 3 years old. My dad was drunk, he was angry, and he was physically taking it out on my mom, which was a regular occurrence. Now, back in the 70s, it wasn't uncommon to watch TV shows where women were slapped around, pushed, and shoved. I mean, after all, we did have in the 80s Pat Benatar, who said, "Hit me with your best shot." If you're ever curious about that information, you should probably watch All in the Family. Now, I climbed out of my bed in horror as to what I was hearing, and I went down the stairs, one by one, clutching the stair rail. And I came around the corner, and I saw my mom huddled with my dad wailing on her. Now, at 2 or 3, whatever age I was, I defended my mom with pee streaming down my leg, standing up against my father. And I'm sure in my limited capacity as a child to understand, I knew there would be repercussions of some sort, but it didn't matter. The gravity of the situation dictated action. And in the times in my life, I may have entertained the notion that I don't have the authority to change circumstance. Wasn't that what our school years were all about anyway? Yet I've been gifted many opportunities within my lifetime to buck the status quo, and I also have had plenty of opportunities to accept someone else's label and make it my own. And in my 20s, I was working in an environment with an extremely hostile boss who would come into work regularly drunk and would be verbally and somewhat physically abusive with throwing items for service at employees. And while everyone would talk about the situation, including the assistant management, no one would ever do anything about it. Fast forward, and I was living in Idaho on a military base. And all good seasoned military wives know there's a pecking order, and I was really new. See, wives, as well as military members, are subject to a caste and class status. Wives are to make babies, support our military, be seen, not heard, and we are definitely not allowed to challenge or change the status quo for fear it will impact our members' career and their livelihood. Quickly, you're labeled. But for some of us, military or not, the label, it becomes a banner to bring into battle. And after dealing with psychotic, crazy stalker pilot neighbor in Virginia and operating within the parameters of military regs as to how I was to keep myself and my family safe, because assuredly no one else was going to, I found that my fear, yet again, was the catalyst to drive me forward toward action. Now, in my experience, I find in which is people who accept things as they are dislike powerful people. In fact, it can enrage them. It essentially makes you a target, sometimes a scapegoat. And for those that can't muster up courage or possibility, that's exactly what they do. Now, you can accept someone's opinion as fact and be frozen in your circumstance, or you can hone your focus on the fact. All these battles have had some very intense impact upon my health, but I'm not done yet. There's so much more to overcome. In thinking about my own circumstances, I ponder, what is it that keeps people inside the box they accept themselves to be in? And I hypothesize that it's comfort and insecurity that keeps people beholden to their circumstance. Why is it that some people, once they accept what is, find a way to overcome when others just accept? See, your significance is not predicated on status. It's what you are and what you have on the inside, what you have to give, what you have to bring to the fight. Don't give in to that narrative that you can't change your circumstance or that you can't even empower another when you have no power yourself. Your story is so significant. Your acts are significant. We all struggle at times with the truth that each one of us is significant, but when you act to change and challenge the box you've put yourself in or placed yourself in, wonderful things are set in motion. And those wonderful things may be difficult to overcome, but it provides you an opportunity for the next battle. Speed bumps are tossed your way, but with incremental steps, you slowly gain ground. And that is when you start to build inner resilience. That's the difference between facts and opinion. The fact is you overcame. And if you didn't the first time, it provides data so that you can do it better the next time. So how many of you practice self-talk? Are you one of those who needs constant stimuli that keeps you in a place of inaction, numbed out, which is an excuse to accept your current state? I could have believed that the FAA was indeed Goliath, and I could have stepped aside and allowed neighborhood leaders to handle the situation. But knowing who I am, I just couldn't lay it down nor leave it to chance. And I was on a mission because the outcome was so imperative. See, when I was diagnosed with an aneurysm and I looked at that potential bomb in my head and accepted the fact of what was, my goal was not necessarily to survive. It was to provide and make provision for my family if things went south. That's what my property embodied for me. It embodied future. How many times do people try to sell you their opinion as a fact? And why are some people so willing to accept opinion, someone's version of fact? Fuck the FAA. Taking my hard-fought purchase of my property and tanking my home value? No way. And I didn't fight through brain surgery, and I didn't fight through breast cancer, and I didn't fight for my rights to exist on this goddamn planet to have the government steal everything I had overcome to bring me to that moment. Not today. Not tomorrow. I didn't go to school for political science. I didn't even know how to garner the attention this issue intended and needed to require. What I did know was that fear operates by holding people captive. Fear keeps people stuck. Fear tells us it's not possible. It's never been done before. So once again, I broke out my standard, my banner, and while wrapped up like a mummy from surgery in 102 heat, I made flyers, and I distributed them to every single neighborhood affected. And I did it also with some help. I posted it on our online neighborhood network. Now, my grandma used to make quite a ruckus at stores when back in the early 80s, stores, and some of you may remember, stores would use promos in order to get people to come into the store and shop at their store. And rarely were the promotional items ever available for the people that actually showed up. But Rusty, my grandma, she never left the store without a promo, and in most times, that was the only thing she left with in hand. It was a good lesson for an 8-year-old to learn. Focus on what's the fact. Shine a light. Humble yourself. Put down your pride. This will certainly move you ahead towards your goal. Over 507 people showed up to City Council at the first meeting regarding the flight path changes. People became engaged. They didn't have to fear fighting it alone, and they didn't have to accept the narrative that the government can do what it wants. No. And when so-called leaders inserted themselves into my efforts, they tried all sorts of things to get me to go away, just like many store managers did to my grandma. I didn't require permission to march into the mayor's office, nor into Senator McCain's office. I didn't need permission to speak candidly with Senator Flake or Representative Pastor. In fact, Ruben Gallego, who came to one of my first meetings, came before he took office. People all over the country called me. They messaged me and wanted to know how it was that Phoenix was the first to demand action by the FAA, and I simply stated, throw a temper tantrum so big that they will have to hear you. And despite naysayers' best efforts, I had people I never knew coming and offering me help along the way. And for each person whose job it was to take me down or shut me up, I had 2 more that came to my aid, who helped guide me, who supported me, to refocus me. News anchors were at my door through each phase of the discussions, and after every city council meeting being held on the subject. Ron was in one breath amazed, and in another annoyed. And when the neighborhood leaders refused to entertain solutions, as they didn't want to make trouble for the city and expose the truth, I sent a team member to the FAA airline symposiums and found out and recorded from the FAA direct that our city employees, particularly the airport people, knew about the change and even helped to develop the new flight path. And while leaders tried to quiet me, I broke the story. In fact, the mayor's office was so worried of what I would say, I had a standing appointment to which, if I had someone or something in my way, I could simply walk into the office and have any ear needed to provide a solution. Ben Tracy from CBS National Morning News came to interview me at my home. The mayor came to my home with his own bodyguards. But the dirty side of things, people were tasked to silence me on a local level, on a federal level, and within the community to make me seem crazy. But I was on a mission. No way was anyone going to take my family's future. And when neighborhood leaders refused the truth that the FAA was placating and trying to run out the legal time clock, I used all the tools I had available, networks forged to bring it to legal action. And because the community leaders pushed back so hard, I had to find another way to bring it to others. Old Mayor Terry Goddard. I got that in front of him. And then we got that information in front of Mayor Stanton. And then we all had a powwow. And then I asked Terry Goddard to explain to the neighborhood leaders that we could work with the city's legal team in tandem, which was a win for all. And in that process, we kicked FAA butt. And it worked out for others too, despite efforts to shut me up. I mean, it gave Ruben Gallego his first piece of legislation. And it gave a platform and a ticket for Stanton to run for Arizona government. Sure, just like anything, people try to steal from you, as there's plenty of credit stealers and plagiarizers, and no matter who's trying to claim fame, the fact still remains. And from that fight, I wasn't left unscathed.